Hello friends, I'm Elliot and this is my wife Miriam, and we just spent 2.5 weeks in Portugal. Our first stop was Lisbon. I thought I would like it, but it blew me away. It far exceeded my expectations. Let's start by showing you where we stayed. Our Airbnb was on Rua Augusta in the heart of Lisbon. It was filled with beautiful shops and restaurants. The Airbnb was nice. It's a really great bed, comfortable. It had a kitchen and a nice bathroom, and the views were fantastic. One of the highlights of our trip was definitely the food. On our first full day, our first stop was an incredible little place called Feel Rio. This is also the moment I fell in love with acai bowls.
Oh, it's so good.
All throughout our time in Portugal, we just stumbled upon incredibly built old Catholic churches, all different and all unique. This church is the Church of the Blessed Sacrament and was first opened in 1685. That's 182 years older than Canada. It, along with most of Lisbon, was greatly damaged by a major earthquake in 1755, but was restored and open again in 1760. Next, we visited the Carmo convent. It was actually built in the 1300s and was destroyed in that 1755 earthquake. But unlike some other churches in the area, this one was never fully rebuilt. It now serves as an archaeological museum. After the convent, we spent some time wandering the old city streets. We quickly stepped into the Basilica of Our Lady of the Martyrs. It was built in the 1500s and later rebuilt in the 1700s. Eventually, we made our way to the Praça do Comercial, or Commerce Plaza. This was once the location of the Royal Palace until the 1755 earthquake. We were still a little jet-lagged, so we picked up some espresso and our first pastéis de nata and headed back to our Airbnb to give it a try. Later that afternoon, we stopped by a supermarket to pick up a few essentials. Compared to Canada, the prices were very inexpensive. We then went to spend our evening in Alfama, one of Lisbon's oldest neighborhoods, known for its traditional fado music and breathtaking views. The next morning, completely by accident, we found Pink Street. We also found a great breakfast spot called Agora. After breakfast, we hopped on a train to the area of Lisbon called Belém, and let me tell you, there was a lot to see. Our first stop was the Belém Tower, or the Tower of St. Vincent. It was completed in 1514 as part of Lisbon's defenses. Over the years, it has served as a ceremonial gateway to Lisbon and is often portrayed as a symbol of Europe's Age of Discoveries. The Monument of Discoveries is a more recent landmark, opened in 1958, and it honors the long history of Portuguese explorers. Geronimo's Monastery is one of the most beautiful, most impressive buildings I have ever seen. Construction started in 1501, and it took 100 years to complete. It is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The task of the monks who lived in this monastery was to pray for the soul of the king, and also to provide spiritual assistance to navigators and sailors who would depart to discover lands around the world. As beautiful as the sanctuary was, what really blew me away was the cloister. For brunch, we found a charming little restaurant called Miolo. And for dessert, we got the original pastel de nata, which is called pastel de Belém. The first pastiche were actually made by the monks from the monastery back in the 17th century. Later that evening, we went to a fancy steak restaurant called Café de São Bento. It was really good, but I only took one small clip of our meal. My apologies. This here is a picture I found on Google. The next morning we continued our exploring, but not before we found some breakfast at a restaurant called Manjerica. Today we decided to take a bus tour around the city. It was a great way to see some highlights we knew we wouldn't have time to make it to. When you think of Lisbon, you typically think of the old city, but the more modern sections of Lisbon impressed me a lot too. The next day, we woke up early and went to the parish of Sintra. We started off by getting breakfast at Café Saudade. We saw two main sites in Sintra. The first was the Quinta de Regaleira. A quinta is an estate, and it was once the estate of the Viscountess of Regaleira. What looks like a large stone actually opens up into this. It's not a well, it's actually an inverted tower. It was used by the Knights Templar for initiation purposes. It's believed to have been built somewhere between the 10th and 12th century. Our second stop in Sintra was the very popular, very colorful Penna Palace. This beautiful palace was built on the ruins of an old monastery and uses a mixture of architectural styles, such as Neo-Gothic, Neo-Manueline, Neo-Islamic, and Neo-Renaissance. After touring palaces for the day, we took a tuk-tuk back to the town of Sintra and stopped for a few more delicious pastries at Quijadas de Sapa. And this, my friends, is where I will leave you today. If you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for more adventures. In the next video, we will take you to Nazaré and Coimbra.